Hello and welcome to episode 234 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. In Vienna, Virginia, this is Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox in Los Angeles.
I'm in Los Angeles. I just had to go get a sweater because my heat isn't working because my basement flooded.
Your basement flooded? You have a basement?
Yeah. I told you, right? When they were doing crazy construction here and they had to replace all the pipes in the entire building?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That took a lot longer than expected. And also, as they were doing it, they fucked something up and apparently there was like 4 feet of water in the basement. And so it flooded out like all the electronics on all of the hardware down there. And so I haven't had any heat. Well, of course, the 10-day forecast shows nothing but sun in Los Angeles, so it's not going to be that bad.
What's the temperature there right now?
It's like 64.
Oh, I'm sorry you need a sweater.
Oh, the humanity. Yeah. We'll somehow, Ben, we'll survive.
Yeah.
How you been?
Pretty good. Right now I'm on a kick reading or listening to audiobooks about health. Like diet, all these different, things that are out there. And I get on these like hyper-focused reading binges, I guess you could say, where I'll focus on one topic. A couple years ago it was black holes, and then it was like distractions, like email. And I'll tackle a bunch of books on the same topic, and then all of a sudden I'll just be like, okay, I know enough about that. And I don't know what triggers it, but then I just lose interest. But right now I'm reading a book about cholesterol, and it is the most random subject, right? If you had asked me 6 months ago, would you like to learn about cholesterol? I'd be like, no. But I have come across this book in the process of reading these random books about health. And it is shocking to me, the disconnect between what we know about cholesterol, like the scientists that are actually researching it, and what you learn about cholesterol in your doctor's office. It is so outdated what you learn when you go get like your blood tested and your doctor starts going over with you what your cholesterol means, that it's essentially useless. And the reasons for that, at least this book goes into, have a lot to do with the pharmaceutical industry, which makes about $29 billion a year, I guess, and how they're trying to keep the status quo. But it's a fascinating book. I would never have been interested in before, but now that I'm learning about it and how all this stuff connects back to law and policy, is surprisingly interesting.
Interesting. If I read more, I would have something interesting to say.
Yeah, well, here, I'll give you one tidbit to help you understand how outdated the current standard of practice is. So a lot of times people go to the doctor, they get their blood tested, and they are told their total cholesterol number, right? Your total cholesterol number is the sum of your HDL cholesterol, which is the good cholesterol, and your LDL cholesterol, which is supposedly bad, although researchers have come to find out that it depends on the type of LDL that you have, and doctors don't ever really dive into that. So you could have totally benign LDL cholesterol, or you could have really, really bad LDL cholesterol. But in any case, the bottom line is that your total cholesterol is the sum of your HDL and your LDL cholesterols. And a lot of doctors, if your total cholesterol is over 200, they start panicking. And they're like, hey, we got to get you on a drug. Lipitor is a very common one. These are statins, right, that reduce your cholesterol. But the idea that your cholesterol, your total cholesterol number has any meaning is like pretty questionable these days, because it'd be like going to, or your friend goes to a baseball game and you say, hey, how was the game? And you say the total score was 25 points. It's like, okay, well, wait, so how much was for one team?
Runs, Ben. They're called runs in baseball.
Thanks. How many runs did one team get, and how many runs did the other team get, right? It could be a total knockout one way or the other. Or what would you say for baseball? Wouldn't be knockout. Would it be? It'd be you got to help me out here.
A blowout.
A blowout,
sure.
okay. It could be in one direction or another, or it could have been like
perfectly
Yeah.
close.
Yeah, 20, 13 to 12 or something like that. So, if someone said there was 25 runs, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, sounds like there was a lot of scoring going on. I mean, that, as ignorant as I am about baseball, that sounds rather high. Is that high?
I was just going to give you a quiz to see if you knew that if it was high or low. But yes, 25 runs in a baseball game would be extremely high.
Yeah, it sounds like just a lot of
That'd
people
be
going
like two
home.
or three times as many runs as normally scored.
Yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. So you'd be like, wow, that was a really active game. But you would have no idea, which team was winning or whatnot. So that's kind of what total cholesterol is like. It's like, wait a sec. So how much of that is HDL and how much of that is LDL? And so, of course, doctors dig into that a little bit and they say, oh, look, your LDL is high. That's the bad cholesterol. We got to do something about it. But again, like I was saying, LDL can be broken down into at least two types, and one of those types is benign and the other type is a serious problem. So what do you know? You still don't really know anything, even if you have those numbers. So the drug companies have a huge incentive to have doctors keep prescribing these drugs. And cholesterol is actually usually a response to a problem. And so there's a lot of evidence that if you have high cholesterol, decreasing the cholesterol is like a correlation causation problem, right? You're
fixing a symptom.
You're fixing a symptom instead of the underlying problem, which is what ultimately leads to like heart attacks or whatever. So the whole thing is fucked up. There's so much money involved. And it's just fascinating to listen to the doctors who are part of this, movement against the status quo and the challenges that they face. Because so many organizations like the NIH and the American Heart Association have been kind of co-opted by these drug companies in very subtle ways. And
probably not so subtle ways. I mean, it's amazing what billions and billions of dollars will do to your way of thinking, right?
Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm learning about right now. Fascinating stuff.
You're giving everybody, all the listeners right now are getting PTSD from all of the LSAT logical reasoning questions that are about cholesterol, by the way.
They are.
I mean, there's dozens of questions that are about HDL and LDL and lipoproteins and all that shit, right?
Well, it's actually interesting that you mentioned that now that I think about it, because one thing that the LSAT likes to test is the difference between dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol levels, which is definitely a thing, right? Like, if your blood cholesterol or if your dietary cholesterol goes up, then your blood cholesterol will go up, and the LSAT's like, no, not necessarily. Just because you eat it doesn't mean it will show up in your blood. And there is a lot of truth to that, especially since 80% of your cholesterol that's circulating in your blood is made by your liver. So, there's all these like interesting facts out there, research. Oh, and that's the other thing is that the studies that have been used to justify the current system, right? When people look back at them, they're like, oh my God, they're so flawed. But they're also so expensive to conduct that the only people who are really willing to put in the millions of dollars to do like a legit study are the drug companies. There are other people who want to do it, but they don't have the money to do it in the way that would be legit. But one of the most famous studies that's being used to justify the status quo looked at people eating saturated fat, and at the same time, they were eating lots of like sugars and stuff like that. And so the study author concluded that the saturated fat was the problem, but people are now like, but there was this other variable, sugar, that was involved. So you can't say that was the one that was the cause. Maybe the other one was the cause, or maybe these things are just correlated. Like there's so many problems, but it doesn't matter because they got what they wanted. So now they want to just keep pushing that idea.
Yeah. We can deliver a little bit of LSAT content here by talking about the difference between the data that a study show and then the results, or like the
like the conclusions of the author.
It's right. So on the LSAT logical reasoning, you're going to find, I mean, I think this might be on every single test.
Yeah.
Somewhere where they have done an experiment. They give you basically the findings from the experiment. Is the findings the like actual data? whatever. They give you the
Yeah.
actual data. Like, well, here's what the survey results were.
Sure.
Or here's what the blood cholesterol counts were. Or here's what the correlation was, between cholesterol and heart attack or whatever.
Yeah.
And they give you data, or like the summary of the data. And then they go, this shows that.
Yeah.
And it's everything before this shows that, we're going to accept that stuff as fact. And everything that's after this shows that is their conclusion. And that's always bullshit. Or it's at least inherently suspect.
At least not necessarily true, right? Bottom line.
Right. And you should just start with the stance that, hey, this is probably going to be bullshit.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be much better off because on 9 times out of 10, it is 9 times out of 10 on the LSAT. The findings or the data don't actually support what they think it supports.
Yeah.
So they draw conclusions from their data where you have to go, wait a second, not necessarily because, right?
Yeah.
And so then all those things come in like, well, you might be confusing a cause for an effect, or you might be you've shown correlation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's causation.
Yeah.
Or what about other factors that could be causing this apparent effect?
Yeah.
Interesting. So the drug companies are very happy to interpret that in the way that's most favorable to them.
Yeah.
And they slip a few $1 billion bills in with their results to get doctors to continue to prescribe those drugs for them.
Yeah, well, it's pretty insidious. I mean, I'm sure to whoever believes these results and the conclusions, I should say, they think they're doing a great thing. But the drug companies have basically pushed, these various organizations to make prescribing a statin, which is a cholesterol reducing drug. And the way it reduces cholesterol is it actually kills cells in your liver that create cholesterol. So it's a pretty nasty thing. But in any case, they've made that the standard of care. And so because that's the standard of care, if someone has high cholesterol and you're a doctor and you don't prescribe a statin, you're actually now wading out into malpractice because potentially you're not following the standard of care. And so you can get sued, no matter what happens. And so then it's like you have doctors who are like, this is bullshit, but scared enough that they go ahead and prescribe it anyway because it's the safe thing to do, especially, if you're busy, you run a busy practice, someone comes in, they have high cholesterol, that's the standard. And you're actually not in trouble if you prescribe that and they get hurt.
Sounds like lawyers are fucking everything up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that in their minds, they're like, okay, well, doctors are doing bad things when they don't do what they're supposed to do. What's the standard of care? And they're not medical experts. So someone somewhere kind of pushes that idea. And once that gets accepted, then that becomes a legal standard, even if doctors are just looking at it as like, oh, what's the best thing to do here? Well, unfortunately, it becomes legal. And there are some serious issues with that. Anyways, sorry to go off on a random tangent, but it certainly ties into the LSAT. You have to be so skeptical of all these things. There was another study where this guy became pretty famous for pushing the whole like low-fat vegetarian diet, and he based it on a study that looked at several people with heart problems. But as he was describing the study, it just made me think of the LSAT because there are so many problems. They only looked at people with heart problems as opposed to people in general. And then he failed to leave out the fact that not only did they change their diet, they also started exercising more, cut out smoking, and cut out alcohol. I was like, dude, you can't do those 4 things and be like, well, it was that, so this is what's going to be best for everybody. I mean, sure, it totally could be. But you just can't run with that. But people, there's
there's LSAT logical reasoning questions that do that so blatantly.
Yeah.
I mean, where it's just, they'll just like give it to you. They're like, well, I did this study and I had people cut fat out of their diet and also start exercising 9 times a week, and they had a lower risk of heart disease. And from this, I determined that a low-fat diet reduces heart disease.
Yeah.
That's like actually, I mean, that's not literally an LSAT question, but they do that a lot.
They do that a lot. And you find it
thing.
funny on the LSAT. It's like, oh, this is happening in the real world? God damn.
I know, but then it's like with my class, I'll have kids sitting there like totally scratching their heads like, yeah, I just can't wrap my mind around this one. I mean, it does seem like a low-fat diet. It does seem better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to like shake them, and I want to go like, did you go to college? Did you ever have a class that talked about the scientific method?
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed. What about the exercising 9 times a week? That didn't make any kind of a red flag for you? It's right there on the page. You just have to be a critical thinker, and you have to be expecting them to try to bullshit you.
Yeah.
You know, because they do. God. Anyways, what's on the show today?
So today we're gonna tackle a pearl versus turd. Someone sent in some advice about how to guess on the last few questions that you didn't have time to get to.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah. Try to make this more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
We're gonna have someone, let's see, has a question, I guess, on how to best approach the different types of sections. Okay. Differences between LR, reading comp, and games, I guess. And then we're going to deep dive into an email from Anonymous, a longtime listener who has questions about negotiation tips and her personal statement.
Sounds good.
Yeah. This will air on Monday, March 2nd. The March LSAT is coming up soon on the 30th. It's too late to register for that, but you can register for the April LSAT on March 10th. So you have about a week to do that. And the April LSAT is on April 25th. That's a Saturday. You can always email the show at help@thinkinglsat.com. Please send us your selfies. Leave a review on iTunes. That's always very helpful, good or bad. And please write a note. Tell us what you think. Also, just a quick announcement here. I'm still looking for a teacher in DC. Several people have applied, and I appreciate that, but things didn't
None of you
work.
are good. If you're a better applicant.
Some of it is, coordinating expectations, because I really want people to be here for the long haul, at least a couple years. So some of that doesn't always work out for people. But if you plan to be in the DC area for a while, you did very well in the LSAT, you understand how Nathan and I teach the games in particular, I would love to hear from you. So email me at jobs@strategyprep.com.
Ideally, someone with no plans of going to law school.
Yes. Please have plans.
But you did take the LSAT, but you've decided not to go to law school. That's perfect.
That would be ideal. Thank you.
It's also better for you. Not you, Ben,
Yes,
but you,
the listener.
Yeah. Who is planning to work with Ben and potentially build a career teaching LSAT, which I promise you is a better career than being a lawyer.
There you go. I couldn't say it better myself. Thank you, Nathan. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, pearls versus turds. So we don't have that many pearls out there. We've only seen 6, supposedly. We've seen 28 turds and 14 ties. So, again, questionable things. I guess we take our attitude about the test in general, this is bullshit, into these pearls versus turds, right? There's certainly a skepticism that we use as we approach these suggestions.
And life. I mean, if you're going to be there's so much bullshit out there. 99% of everything that every political candidate says, for example.
Yeah.
You just got to be a critical thinker. So yeah, when you're getting all these supposed, genius tips about the LSAT, most of them, when they sound too good to be true, they're just turds. That's why.
They're turds. So, do you want to tackle this one?
Sure.
Okay.
This came in from a listener who heard this advice on another podcast. I don't know what we're referring to here, but it's about guessing. And it says, how to guess in the last 5 minutes from alleged extensive research that was done.
Whoa.
And it says the answer choices are not random. So you can have more than a 20% chance of getting the answers correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, God, it's this shit. For LR and RC, the most common answer choice is D. But for logic games, the most common answer choice is B. But
okay.
So
keep track of that. You guys got that?
But hold on, though, not so fast, because in the last 5 questions, the answer choices change. So on logical reasoning, it's actually E. And on reading comp, it's actually B. And on games, it's actually A.
Oh my God, I can't keep up.
Well, wait. So then the first thing, you just throw that away, because now what we really care about is the last 5.
Yeah,
right?
sure, yeah.
Sometimes we're guessing on more than the last 5, but I would think most people are doing most of their guessing on the last 5. So, okay, so hold on. So scratch all that first thing, and you have to remember the new letters.
Okay.
Again, it's E for logical reasoning, B for reading comp, and A for logic games.
Okay.
But then the same podcast apparently is giving the advice, as you go through the section, keep note of what answer choices you're picking so that during an LR section, for example, if you have chosen already a lot of E's, then you don't put E for the last 5. Instead, you change to a different letter like D or A.
Wait, hold on. Maybe you should go back to D, since that's the most common general answer for LR and RC. Oh, dear. That was a joke, by the way. Please don't take me seriously.
No, this is going straight in the turd pile. I have so many problems with this advice. The first thing is that if you did do extensive research, the only extensive research you could have done is just like data on the old tests, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no reason why they won't just change this going forward. Mm-hmm. For one.
Yeah.
So even if you do know that historically, instead of 20% E's, it's 22% E's, they could always change that. That's one reason why this is a turd.
Yeah.
Another reason why it's a turd is that it only microscopically changes your expectation anyway.
Yeah. We're not talking...
Right?
Yeah, we're going from a 20% chance of the answer being D to maybe 22 or 21. Dude, I mean, I don't...
Even if let's give them way too much credit and say that it was 30%.
Okay, 30%.
Okay? Mm-hmm. How much have you improved your score if you improve your guesses instead of the 20% chance that we would expect? If you increase that to a 30% chance, how much have you improved your score if you guess on 5 questions?
If you're guessing, if you're guessing on 5 questions, if you have a 20% chance of getting those correct, you're going to get 1.
Well, just do the delta.
Right?
You've improved it by 10%.
Yeah, and now it's still 1.
You're going to get 0.1 question per question more. So on 5 guesses, you would have improved your expectation by 1/2 of 1 point.
Yes.
And that's giving them way too much credit.
Yeah.
That you're actually able to know which letter is the right one, and that is actually a 30% chance instead of a 20% chance, which it's not. But even if it were, even if this never changed and you were able to do it perfectly, and it was much more dramatic an effect than it actually is, you would still get 1/2 of a question more out of 5 guesses.
So far your argument has been focusing on how the benefits are minimal or non-existent.
Yes, I can't wait to hear what you're going to say next, because I could have started yelling about this too, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah, so there's also the negative consequences of taking the time to figure this all out. One simple one is, and this is awful, I would hate for people to be debating between 2 letters or 3 and then somehow let the thought that the answer is more likely to be E to come in there and bias their analysis and distract them from thinking about what the hell is actually going on.
There's so many better things you could be thinking about, like, for example, the question type and the answer choice strength.
Yeah.
If all else is equal.
Yeah, and really, as you get better at this test and logical reasoning, People at the beginning, I feel like they think that logical reasoning and reading comp is more subjective. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, B is correct. I chose C. I could see why someone else or the LSAC or the test writers would think that B is better. But, it's just kind of a matter of opinion. As you get better, you start to realize, no, there are concrete reasons why things are right or wrong. And when you're debating between two answers, it usually means that you're just missing one word or phrase. And once you see that word or phrase, you're like, oh, this isn't a debate anymore. This answer is hands down better and 100% correct. So debating between two answer choices can be a blessing. It can be like, hey, wake up. You missed something, dig a little deeper, figure it out. But if you start bringing this stuff in, then it becomes like, oh, well, I was down to 50-50 and I chose this one, or you let it affect you in any way. I just don't like that at all.
Dude, keep track of the answers you've picked so far.
That is another time sink, distraction. How many people, the LSAT frequently gives you 4 E's in a row. Or 4 B's in a row. And people are like questioning number 4. They're like, oh, wait, I just did E for the last 3. Is this going to be E2? This is just going to magnify that tenfold. People are going to be like, whoa, hyper aware of what they're doing in terms of answer choices, and then start making stupid decisions. No, there's so many problems with that. This is something that
we specifically tell people not to worry about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice now that we're on digital instead of on Scantrons.
Yep.
In the Scantron days, students could just easily see, oh shit, I've picked 4 E's in a row, and start worrying about it, at which point I would have to correct them and say, listen, sometimes they put 5 E's in a row. Also, how do you know you got all 4 of those previous E's right?
Yeah, 100%.
One of them might have been D, but you don't know which one. So basically, stop thinking about that and just work on the question that you're supposed to be working on.
Yep.
With digital, we don't have that anymore because you can't see your old answers without going back to the old questions.
And they're suggesting
that's a
to
blessing.
Bring it back. Yeah.
They're actually suggesting to go, they want you to keep track of that. Apparently, I don't know, unless we're misunderstanding this tip, this seems like straight to the turd pile.
Straight to the turd pile. And if we could have like a smelly turd pile, this would be it, right? This is like a hard no. A bad. Some things we're like, no, because we're like, yeah, this isn't going to help you. This is not only not going to help you, this is going to hurt you. So stay away.
This is just the perfect example of a fucking gimmick. Instead of thinking about actually understanding the content of the test, it's like a shortcut gimmick that even if we gave them all of the credit that this was actually going to work, it's still going to only improve your score by half a question, when you could have spent all that time and energy just getting another question right.
Well, and even that half a question improvement is assuming that there was no loss from taking the time to write things down, getting distracted by this thought process, all that.
Yeah.
So
this is an example of where the upside is extremely limited. Mm-hmm. The downside is like unlimited. I mean, because students do it all the time. Students will be like on question number 5 and they'll be like, well, I already picked C 3 times.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This one can't possibly be C.
It's random, right? Like it's pretty random. So,
dude, you need to answer the question. There's like one even credible answer here and 4 garbage answers. And all you got to do is just understand the question and answer it correctly. If your LSAT teacher, tutor, podcaster, if they're ever talking about anything other than actually understanding, I think you need to find a different guru. Like the test makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And our job is to help you understand how it makes perfect sense. That's it. I'm not talking about gimmicky bullshit. We're talking about like actually getting to understanding.
If anyone explains this to you in your class, one non-confrontational way to address it is to raise your hand and simply ask, Are there any downsides to following this strategy? And see what they say.
They're just going to go, nope.
Nope.
Next question. I can't possibly imagine what downside there could be from keeping track of all your answers and then counting up how many E's you had.
Oh my God. Can you imagine people too being stuck between like, well, I had a bunch of E's and a bunch of D's. Ooh, I had 13.
This is exactly what people would do. I mean, this is not anything that I would ever have done, but I've worked with thousands of students over, a decade plus of teaching LSAT, and I know all of the broken ways that people think about this stuff. This tip is like encouraging people to do exactly the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So I agree. There should be a special turd pile. This goes into the turd dunce corner. This needs to put on a dunce cap and go in the corner of the turd pile.
Cool. Well, thanks for sending that in.
If you have pearls versus turds, you can send them into the show. help@thinkinglsat.com. Love to get some more tips. And, we're open to the possibility that there can actually be good tips out there. So send them in, please.
Yep.
help@thinkinglsat.com. All right.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, guys. As I approach week 2 of studying, I had a few questions that I've been wanting to ask. Okay. Number 1. What's the best way to approach the 3 types of sections you will face? Trying to learn and master them together, or mastering one and then moving on to the next one? Oh, that's easy. What do you think?
I encourage people to do a balanced approach where they move fairly fluidly between the 3 types of sections.
Yeah.
One big reason is that you're not going to master any of the 3 sections anyway. I mean, some people at some point will master logic games.
Yeah.
Some people might start with reading comp that's so strong that it's as if you have mastered it already before you even started because you're just like a really good reader. But most people are going to, start in the 140s or 150s, and they're going to have room for improvement in all 3 sections, and they're never going to really master any of the 3 sections.
Yeah.
So, in fact, this approach of taking one section at a time is something that I don't know about you, Ben, but I see it most often in my very worst students.
Yeah.
This seems to be a thing that people want to do when they're really, really struggling with the test.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I'll just master the logical reasoning. And it's like, but you're getting like 8 correct per section. Like you're never going to master this.
Yeah. I would think of it as like preparing for a triathlon, right? Triathlon, you have to do running, swimming, and biking. I was like, what do you have to do? In any case, it'd be weird to just be like, okay, I have 3 months to prepare for this triathlon.
1 month of swimming, 1 month of running, 1 month of biking.
It's also like, I think that analogy, although it obviously has some problems, it's also got a good thing about that. Can you imagine just like swimming every day, right? It would be so much more effective for you to swim one day and then run the next because you're using different muscles. The same is true for like, even in class, when I'm doing stuff with people, like they might do, like if we just did reading comp the whole time, we could do it, but doing a game or a section of games is kind of like a mental break from all that reading. Yeah. So you can get more done when you kind of shake it up and move from one thing to the next.
Yeah. Well, and part of the actual performance of the test day is that thing where, okay, section 1, here we go, start, and you don't even know what section it's going to be.
Nope. Yeah.
And so if you're like, oh, no, I'm just doing reading comp this month, well, then you're never dealing with that. Even if it's only a moment, it's about your like mojo, right? Where you kind of start off balance a little bit. Mm-hmm. You have to find your footing in at least figure out what type of section it is and get moving.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to just do the same thing every day, you're not practicing that. It's very similar to the people who just do, I'm only going to do must be true questions.
Yeah.
In logical reasoning. It's like, well, yeah, the daemon is designed so that you can filter it down to just must be trues if you want, but you should do that for like one study session max, and then you should turn off that filter, because the game in logical reasoning, a lot of it is figuring out what, just going from one type to the other type to the other type.
Yeah.
And identifying those types. So if you're just focusing too much on any one section or on any one type, then, there's half of the game that you're just not even doing.
Yeah. Well, so that discussion reminds me of the company that shall not be named, but they are obsessive about giving people like hundreds of must be true questions back to back, and that's your homework. And it's just like, okay, there might be some value with that, doing it for a day, like you're saying, to sort of say, oh, okay, I get what they're saying when they say
well,
must be true.
If you super suck at necessary assumption questions, or you super suck at must be true questions, I can see how it's like, well, you're not used to, you got to get in the mode of doing this, so that you really drills into you, so that you understand what type of question. But oh my God, hundreds in a row?
Yeah.
No way.
And you got to avoid a potential trap here. When I was on this kick about reading books about learning, we talked about this a while ago, but people, when they study just one question type, they do make progress faster in that question type. That progress, by the way, is deceptive though, because like you said, it's not what's going to be on test day. So then when you go to this testing environment where you're changing up question types or changing up section types, you're like, whoa, you get thrown off. So you're not as far along as you thought you were. And you actually don't learn as much about that question type as you would if you were going back and forth. This is why, like, a lot of times when I teach necessary assumption questions, I teach it alongside sufficient assumption, because seeing the two next to each other helps people recognize what is actually a necessary assumption question. And so you're losing that, but people like to see that progress, the dopamine that comes from it. So they're very tempted to do this sort of thing, but it's the only thing you'd want to do for like a day and then quickly go back to jumping things around.
And if you never do it, that's totally fine.
Totally fine. That's the default approach. Don't target anything unless you know that you're like just confused about what a necessary assumption even is. Even then, though, I'd probably suggest doing necessary assumption and sufficient assumption together.
Right. All right. So our answer is don't try to master one type of section or one. Yeah. No, just keep it balanced. I mean, if you do 2 tests per week, you're going to do a couple sections of games, couple sections of RC, 4 sections of LR. That's great. That's like roughly perfect, right?
Yeah, because you should be spending more time
should be doing
on LR anyway, because it's half the test. And so,
which brings us to the next question.
Okay. What would be the most important section to master? I'm guessing LR, since it makes up half the test. Okay. I mean, I think what we were trying to say earlier is all of them, but if I had to be pushed to answer a question, I would say LR, because I think it is half the test and it's going to help you become a better reader, and which would help you with reading comp. But I would still just go after all 3.
The problem with that is that most people have more ground that needs to be covered in the games.
Yeah.
And games is also the section where, if you were going to ever, quote, master a section, it would probably be the games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the section where people end up knowing that they're going to score perfectly, or, expecting to score perfectly, is the games.
Yeah.
So if there was one most important section to master, I would say it's, LR because it's half the test, but games because you might be able to get half your improvement from just that one section.
Yeah. Yep. Next question. Any tips on how long I should prepare? I plan on taking the test in September. Okay. It's February right now. And my goal is a 170. It may take you that long to get a 170. I have no idea where you're scoring. I don't know what you're struggling with, whether that's games, which would be easier to improve than, say, reading comp, as Nathan was just saying. That sounds far away, though, to me.
This is a fairly naive question. I think it's a very common question.
Yeah.
But it's asked most often by naive students. The answer is it depends. It's totally different, wildly different for everybody.
Yeah.
I was talking about my buddy Mike on the last show, who showed up and scored a cold 164 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
If Mike's goal was a 170, he would probably have been able to make it in a month.
Yeah.
Less than a month, you know? I mean, I think his 164, by the way, was like shitty games.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm almost sure it was shitty games. So with Mike, it would have been like, dude, let's just work on the games for a month and you'll probably score 170 something. No problem.
Yeah.
For other students, I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but there are some people who are never going to make it to 170 no matter how long they study.
Yeah.
170 is the 97th, 98th percentile.
Yep.
Sorry, but we're not all in the top 2% of test takers.
Yeah.
And so
we're not all a special snowflake, unfortunately.
No, we're not. So without knowing where you started, without knowing what your weaknesses are, I have no idea. I really can't tell you how long you should prepare.
Yeah.
Also, just even having this goal of 170, I mean, for one, it might be unattainable, but for two, it might be less than what you're capable of. Like Mike with his cold 164, if he would have come in like, oh, I just want to get 170, I would have been like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? You should get a 175.
Yeah.
That would be lame. That would be like, you're not a lawyer already because you've decided to settle for a 170 when you could have gotten a 175. I mean, I don't care who you are, you need every point you can possibly get.
Yeah.
I mean, each one of these points is worth like 10 grand or more.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 grand worth of just scholarships at the beginning of the process.
Yeah.
Who knows what the value is for your career?
That's what I was telling my class last night. I said, this is your best opportunity to make money right now. I can't imagine anyone being able to make more than $100,000 in the next 2 months. But you could do that depending on what you do in this class.
And it has the magnifying effect on your entire career earnings.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just going to start at, if you start at not to mention the time value of money on the tuition that you might not have to pay.
Yeah.
And not to mention the time value of money on the stipends that you might get.
Yeah.
But the fact that you start at a slightly better school gets you a slightly better summer job, gets you a slightly better first job out of law school, puts your career on an entirely different track. And so, yeah, this is, how long should you prepare? I don't know, as long as it takes, though, because your goal should be, I'm going to reach my maximum potential on this test.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Yep.
And however long that takes. I don't think, it's extremely rare that someone can do it in just a month. 2 or 3 months seems to be kind of the minimum for most people.
Yep.
To where we start to feel comfortable that like, okay, maybe you've reached your potential, or at least you've gotten all the low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard to improve more from here.
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 months is kind of the minimum.
Yeah.
Many, many students are still improving 6 months later.
Yep.
And some students are still improving a year later.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't, and everybody, I understand, I guess, the human nature of people wanting this advice. It would be nice if we could just give you the blanket advice. But, we just can't.
Yeah. Anonymous concludes, "Thanks, guys!" Exclamation point. Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry if it felt like I was lecturing you for asking the question. It's I'm not. I mean, I'm just I'm trying to make it as clear as possible that this is a question that people want. Everybody wants this answered. I just don't think anybody can actually give you a real answer.
Yeah.
2 or 3 months minimum. Reconsider whether 170 is actually too high or too low. I just don't even like it when people have specific scores in mind. I think that can either be frustrating because it's a number you're never going to reach, or limiting because it's a number that's too low.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather what's your baseline? What are you going to learn today so that you're a little bit better tomorrow? And then just do that as long as possible.
Yeah.
Or not as long as possible, as long as it takes to where you feel like you're, the wheels are slipping and you're not making any more forward progress.
Yeah.
When we see students who have taken it 7 times or whatever after a year, it's like, well, okay, you've given it a damn good effort and you've improved a lot, and okay, maybe that is time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Good stuff for everybody to hear. You want to take this?
Yeah, I think those were useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from Anonymous, and it says, Nathan and Ben, long time no talk. I'm still listening to y'all occasionally, despite now having only a few topics of discussion that are relevant to me. I've been offered a handful of scholarships. One offer is full tuition, ! After applying to about 15 schools. I will send scholarship details once my negotiations are complete. This is from a former Demon student, longtime correspondent of the show. Ended up with a high LSAT of 166. What is that, Ben? Like 92nd percentile, something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So fine LSAT score and a 3.5 undergraduate GPA.
Okay.
By the way, some advice on what to say to schools when negotiating would be super helpful. After looking at Reddit and Google, there isn't much guidance on what to actually say. How much detail of dollar amounts do we need to address? Cost of living? Just tuition? Just your first year or all years? Some schools lower their scholarships if you switch to resident status as a 2L or 3L. Do we need to show bottom line numbers? Should we attach a copy of our offer from the other schools? Looks like that may be a normal procedure, although to me it feels odd. Anyway, now that I'm officially in the post-application process, I'm ready for you to read and most likely crush my personal statement. I'm already embarrassed rereading my last paragraph several months after I wrote it. Give it a rip. So here's what we got. This is from Anonymous. We've got the personal statement. Mm-hmm. We've got the spreadsheets that she's been building to track her application process. We're not going to give the specifics of these offers, but we are going to give, we're just going to talk about, these are awesome spreadsheets that she's built. She applied to a shit ton of schools. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a real good start to your negotiations.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going to come back and who's going to.
That's like going to 20 car dealerships.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
You learn a lot, though.
Yeah, and you just put yourself in such a better position. So, you've already won, Anonymous. You've already won this negotiation by doing it this way. You applied early. You applied broadly. You applied with good numbers. There's no way this isn't going to work out. And she says she already has a full ride in hand. So, she has the option to not pay for law school.
Dude, speaking of car dealerships, I'm sorry for this tangent, but I just went through this whole process to buy an SUV because I need more space for all my kids. And I was shocked. I was literally shocked by the difference in quality of all the SUVs out there. I tried Kias, Chevys, Traverse. I tried the Honda Pilot. I tried the Tahoe, Ford's Explorer. I tried so many different cars, and so many of them just rode really poorly. And then sometimes you had cars where it's like, okay, in my head, I have this hierarchy of cars, right? And right now at the top is the Pilot. And it's like, okay, this car is the best one of the ones that we tried. And it's cheaper than some of these others. It's just mind-boggling. If you only go to 2 or 3 dealerships and you're looking at these prices and you're comparing those cars and you haven't tried that 4th car or that 5th car, I just was sitting there. I'm like, I don't understand. This car is better, hands down, and it's cheaper out of the box. It just doesn't make sense. And then you're like, well, I guess that's why some cars are just dominating the road and you just see them all over the place. And others are just, kind of there.
Yeah,
People
I mean,
figure it out.
Honda's a good car maker.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why the Civic was like the number one car on the road for a bazillion years.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It was cheaper and better than, its competing whatever the other cars in its class for a long time.
Well, I just kept feeling like, I'm going to just have to pay a little bit more to get something a little bit better. And there obviously is some connection with how much you pay and so on. But it's funny too, because a lot of these prices are just based on like luxury. Like sometimes we went up to these like luxury vehicles and they're like $20,000 more. And you're like, holy fuck. But you're like, in terms of quality, sometimes the quality is it's always better. Well, not always actually. There's some like luxury cars. It's like, wait, I would be paying premium for this, and it's not any better. The point of this long story is I was shocked. I thought the market would be much more like just evenly stratified. Like you pay $5,000 more, and you're gonna, it makes sense. This car's a little bit better. It's got another safety feature. It seems to ride a little smoother. It was not like that at all. There was definitely cars where it's like you're paying more and it's worse. And I'm just like, I don't know what the hell is going on here. But people just go, I guess, and they don't go anywhere else. If you apply to like a handful of schools, or even worse, 3, right? You're substantially narrowing your view as to what is out there. I mean, we hear people all the time who apply to, a dozen schools, 15 schools, and you have higher ranked schools that are rejecting them. And then you have an even higher ranked school that's waitlisted them or put them or accepted them. And you're like, wait, what? Like you were accepted by this school, but you were rejected by these lower schools. Now that could be because the lower schools are worried you're not going to come, but a lot of times it's just like a surprise. You're like, they should be accepting you if this other school is accepting you despite your low numbers, at least for that school. But hey, they accepted you. Cornell has said yes. Like, what are you going to do with that? Maybe you have to go for full price and you don't want to do that and it's not worth it. I don't know. But you just get these random things that come into your lap and you're like, damn, if I had just applied to a few schools, I would not know about this or be able to use this as leverage to apply to other schools.
Yeah, well, I've heard just recently, I forget who I was talking to. Oh, it might have been, well, I'm going to unnamed because I can see the schools thinking this is slightly shady, but some school sends you a fee waiver, unsolicited fee waiver, and you're like, yeah, whatever, throw in the application.
Yep.
Month later, they admit you with a scholarship offer, and oh, by the way, they also want to fly you out to go visit the school.
Yeah.
You have no intention of going to the school, but there are other schools in that city that you want to go to.
Sure. So you fly out and you schedule.
Let them fly you out there, put you up in a hotel. You go see their school, of course.
Yeah.
They've offered you a scholarship. Why not go look at their school? But also while you're there, see your friends and, go to other schools. And I mean, why not?
Yeah.
That's the type of shit that happens when you apply broadly. It just does not happen if you only apply to a couple schools. The law schools would love it if you only applied to a couple schools. Yeah. They would love it if you only applied to their school.
Yep. 100%.
That's just like the car dealer would love it if that's the only car dealership, you're ever going to just go to one dealer. I'm buying my car from you.
Yeah.
They love it when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly why you should not do that.
Yeah.
All right. Personal statement. You want me to read it?
Sure. Go for it.
I touched down at the Philadelphia airport during the final negotiations of our magazine's multi-million-dollar printing contract.
Okay, I like that it has some facts, and we're starting to learn more about this applicant, but
I like that the subject is I.
I like the subject as I. I'd prefer something better than touched down.
It's not like she's landing the airplane.
Yeah.
So, it's like, it's this cinematic. How many stupid movies start with an airplane landing, and that sound of the tires hitting?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. But hey, apparently, it's like one sentence says a lot.
It does say a lot.
Apparently, if I'm understanding correctly, she's flying somewhere on business.
Yes.
That's a good start.
Someone's willing to pay money to ship you around. You must be worth something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. It's just that says a lot. And it's also something that a lot of the 21-year-olds, she's a non-traditional applicant, okay? She thinks she's like an old lady because she's in her late 20s. But or maybe she's 30, whatever. But she's not, she's a few years older than the typical applicant.
Yep.
Not significantly older, but a few years older. But she's had some life experience. And she is demonstrating that right off the bat here. Mm-hmm. It's clear that she's flying somewhere on business, helping to negotiate, apparently, some multi-million-dollar contract.
Yeah.
This sounds to me like a successful business person. Mm-hmm. Which successful business person is what I'm looking for in a lawyer.
Yep.
That's what I want. I mean, largely, everybody thinks they're going to go fight for social justice or whatever, but most lawyers are doing business.
Yeah.
So, like this I don't know, already I'm liking it. Do you want to give her some tips on how to make it better?
Yeah. So to clarify, I guess when we criticize these sentences, it might help to say whether it's an A, B, C, D, or F sentence, right? Like this is an A sentence that could be made better, or A minus, maybe an A minus. We deal with some sentences that are straight up Fs, right? Just like this is not helping in any way, shape, or form. This is helping quite a bit. Like you said, it's telling us things about her. We know a lot about her in just one sentence. This is a small thing. This is to go from an A minus to an A or an A to an A plus. I would actually drop the word printing. So it says, I touched down at the Philadelphia airport during the final negotiations of our magazine's multi-million-dollar printing contract. I would just say, so the problem is you have a lot of nouns strewn together, and as such, it kind of slows the reading down and makes it a little harder to just like visualize. I don't really care whether it's a printing contract or a contract. The more important point here is that it's a multi-million-dollar one. I also would consider rephrasing final negotiations, because that's a noun, to like negotiating. That would not only make it shorter, but it would also, again, make it a little more punchier and stick out a little bit more. So
there's no such thing as done. There's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
If we were working with Anonymous as a client for a personal statement service, we would do multiple rounds on this, multiple different revisions going back and forth on it.
Yeah.
Till it sounded, as good as we could possibly make it sound. But I agree that this is already an A minus. I mean, this is not the first thing that I would be looking to change.
Yeah.
Okay. I was visiting a potential plant, M-, who also prints for Time Magazine, M-, to tour the facility and discuss their proposal.
This is not good.
No.
Because although it's a concise sentence, it's clear and on some level, you're making a big grammar mistake here.
Yep.
And so that's going to take an A sentence and jam it down to like a B or a C. Because also it's like, whoa, you don't catch what you're doing here. So you said, I was visiting a potential plant. A plant is a thing. So you can't say who. You'd have to say that. And then to tour the facility and discuss their proposal, who are you referring to? The plant's proposal? The people at the plant? I don't know what's going on.
That's not a B or a C for me. That's a D or an F for me.
I was trying to raise it up because the sentence is like clear.
I like that it's short.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the little M- parenthetical.
Yeah.
I mean, I abuse M-dashes, but when you say I was visiting a potential plant, who?
This is
I'm
bad,
just like
bad.
That's like that's almost a critical fail. Like if you were already on the bubble and I read that, it just looks it's one of two things. It's either lazy or you just didn't catch it.
Yeah, you don't know it.
If you didn't review it enough to catch it, then it's lazy. I don't want a lazy lawyer. If you did review it a million times, but you just didn't catch it because you don't naturally catch that sort of thing, well, then that's not the lawyer that I want either.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a small thing. And I'm definitely not saying that I don't want anonymous as a lawyer, because I actually do. But the picture she's painting with this personal statement now is making me think that either she's lazy or just not that great of a writer. And that's a problem. That's not what we want.
Yeah. Lawyers are professional writers. And
Yeah. And extremely, part of being a professional writer is to be extremely diligent about double checking your shit.
Yeah.
So, it's like Anonymous just could have used some help here to avoid that mistake. Anyway, third sentence. I had arrived with resolve, our current printer's contract was expiring, and I was responsible for selecting a new printer and establishing the terms of our contract.
I would get rid of the first part of that sentence.
Totally, because I don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
I had arrived with resolve. Resolve what? I mean, you have a job to do, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to look up resolve now. Resolve,
like commitment,
as
right?
a noun,
Determination.
It's a firm determination to do something.
Yeah.
But you're telling, though.
It's telling,
right?
It's all telling.
That's a noun that's used as a telling, basically. You're telling me how firm your commitment was. What's your firm commitment? My firm commitment to do my job, which is apparent. We already know. I mean, in the first sentence, I knew you were there to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
Now you're telling me that the contract's is expiring and you have to select a new printer, which I already knew because you're visiting a potential plant to tour the facility. Mm-hmm. So you're telling me stuff I already know, and then you're telling me, and you also have to establish the terms of the contract. Well, we knew you were negotiating the contract. So it's like this. Can't the whole sentence just go?
Yeah.
It seems like heavy-handed. I don't know.
Incorporate some of this earlier on, right? Like you could have said, I touched down at the Philadelphia airport to finish negotiating our magazine's multi-million-dollar contract with a new printer. Like if you really want to make that clear, it's like, oh, okay.
That's fine. But then let's just get into the negotiation.
Yeah.
There's too much meandering here, and then it's going to get worse here. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
It says, "Was I on a fast path to law school?" ? The reader's like,
what? Huh? What? It's like detour. Sounds like you're listening to the podcast. It's like random tangent. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, we know you're applying to law school now.
Yeah.
So why do we care about this weird rhetorical about whether you were on a fast path? No, tell me about negotiating the contract. I'm here to learn about you.
Yeah.
You questioning whether you were on a path to law school at the time is not material. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you were or weren't on a fast path to law school at that time.
Yep.
I know you're applying now.
What skills do you have, and can you illustrate them with this negotiation?
Wait, what are you bringing to the table? And you're not showing me anything now. You're not advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
This is meant to be a sales pitch for you as a potential law student and lawyer. You're supposed to be advocating. You're supposed to be showing your best features. And now instead you're a rhetorical question about whether you were on a path. What? Anyway, it goes on. Not quite yet. My college roommate would soon graduate from law school, and she insisted it was perfect for me.
We don't care. We don't care what your college roommate, even if she's a law school graduate or 3L, thinks of your prospects or potential for law school. That's what the law schools are going to decide based on what you show them, not on what you tell them other people think.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of D sentences F sentences in a row here.
Well, this is now, it's not the writing. It's just that it's just the bad ideas. It's just like, this is not the topic.
Yeah.
All of this would have gotten left on the cutting room floor if we were working on it. I think I know what it is. I think she's protesting too much. She's self-conscious about being 30 or whatever she is. And I think students mistakenly think, or applicants mistakenly think, that they're too old now and that they need to try to like retell or like reinvent the story so that it's like, I was always on this inevitable path toward law school. We've seen that, Ben. We've seen that in like specifically in clients we've worked with.
Yeah.
We've seen people that are like really overselling the idea of, I've always been on this path, you know, whether it looks like it or not.
Yeah.
I was always on this path. I don't care that you were always on the path. In fact, it's fine if you were on some other different path. You're on this path now. So let's hear about what's up now. Like, what are you bringing to my law school?
Another way of thinking about this is, once you become an attorney, would you say this to potential clients to get them to work with you? My college roommate always thought I was like, law school is perfect for me. Like, okay.
It's tragic, really, because she has the opportunity to just present herself as a professional person. And instead, she's telling me about her college roommate, which makes her look like a kid.
Yeah.
But we don't want you to look like a kid. We want you to look like a grown-up.
Yeah.
So your college roommate's telling you how perfect it is for you. Okay. That's the last thing I want to hear about. But I already had what I then considered to be my dream job. Another colon. Publishing a Southern culinary magazine in a tourist city, bustling with restaurants, popping up daily in a region bolstered by famed chefs.
Way too much.
For me, that's the worst sentence you've written so far. That's just now straight F. Can talk a little bit, Ben, about colons and what colons are supposed to be for?
Yeah, so one way to think about a colon is to think of it as an equal sign. So whatever comes before it is equaling whatever comes after it. People make a big mistake when they say something like, my job had a lot of responsibilities, including colon. You can't do that because including is a verb. You'd have to technically say including the following, colon, and then you list the following things that are included in your job or whatever. Here, she says, but I already had what I then considered to be my dream job, colon. So what is her dream job? Is it equal to this? Publishing a Southern culinary magazine in a tourist city, blah, blah, blah.
I guess so.
So I think it's technically correct. I just really hate all the modifications, all the adjective phrases that she adds on here. It's just like she's trying too hard to be like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it's the second colon that she's used in like four sentences.
Yeah, that's weird too. You really don't want to overuse these symbols. The point of them is to draw attention to something, right? And because it's different than the normal period or whatnot. So when you use a semicolon,
what are you drawing attention to here? You've already used the M dashes.
Yep.
In your second sentence, and then now in your third sentence and your seventh sentence, you're using colons in both of those. It just feels overwritten.
Yes, you're yelling too much. I mean, it's kind of a weird analogy, but you're trying to use punctuation in a way to highlight things and throw in that rhetorical question. Rhetorical questions are another like writing technique to get the reader to pop out of whatever sort of normal reading path they're in. But the problem with these things is you don't want to use them unless it's like really called for.
You're writing too hard.
Yeah.
It's like, can you see how hard I'm writing? I'm writing as hard as I possibly can. And it's like, no, we want it to feel effortless. Like we don't we don't have to constantly have our attention drawn to you as writer. We're wanting to learn about you as applicant. And the best way to make us think that you're a good writer is for us to not even notice that you're there.
Yeah, we're most impressed by writing that is invisible. That it allows for the story to come out because you're not distracted by the form that the story is presented in.
Yep. This sentence, the thing that we're burying the lead here, Ben keeps trying to get back to it, but a tourist city bustling with restaurants, popping up daily, and then I really hate it. It like was biting on tinfoil, the use of bolstered here. In a region bolstered by famed chefs. I just don't even think that that's a proper use of bolstered.
Like, how is the region bolstered? I guess, like, the economy is bolstered.
Region is, bolstered. Provided with padded support. Oh, I didn't actually, that's interesting. Bolstered is referring to padding. Nobody ever uses it that way. But, your seats, Ben, in the cars you're shopping for, those seats are bolstered. Mm-hmm. And that's like what the word literally means. And so now you're saying that the region is padded by famed chefs. I guess, in that context, I guess it kind of makes sense. It's just annoying. It's just like...
You should never have more than 3 phrases, and 3 is a lot, by the way, modifying your initial term. So the initial term here is publishing a Southern culinary magazine, and then here's first modification, in a tourist city. Second modification, bustling with restaurants.
Which that modifies the city now.
That modifies the city. Popping up daily. That
modifies the restaurants.
The restaurants. In a region, bolstered by famed chefs. It's like, whoa, you're just like being tossed around from one modification to the next. And it's actually kind of what the LSAT likes to do, to bury an idea.
Yeah. And I just, real quick, we're going to need to get the word count. And I always have to do this. I could have, in all this time that I'm looking to do it automatically, I could have just counted them. But there are 35 words in that sentence, which it's just, it's just, we gotta, almost everybody needs to stick to 30
at
max.
most. That's your
maybe
long
25
sentence.
max.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like anytime I read a real bad sentence, it's just sort of like, well, how many words are there? And it's like, yep, there's 30 something. Okay. Yeah. Well, you could have just, as a just rule of thumb, just count the words, and just, if there's more than 25, you need to be thinking about cutting it down.
Yeah.
Okay. Though I didn't know it then, my journey toward law school was already underway.
We don't care.
Yeah, I just don't care. I also, stop painting yourself as naive. Why do people, Ben, insist on trying to make themselves look naive in their own personal statement?
I don't know.
People go out of their way. They jump through hoops to call out all of the times that they didn't know something or that they had a misconception.
Yeah.
They can't stop themselves. They have to keep putting it in there. But you're not, I get it that you're like trying to show humility or whatever. Don't. This is not the time for humility. This is the time for facts that make you look like a fucking killer. I agree. And it's this like revisionist history, right? Where it's sort of like, no, I was. I didn't even know it at the time, but I was. I've always been on this path toward law school, which is like, you're overselling it. Just say what you did. You don't need all this. Yeah. And though my path might have been circuitous, It provided a diverse education I could not have otherwise acquired. Telling. It's a thing anyone could say.
It's telling. It's apologizing. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. Don't apologize for this. They should be.
But I got a diverse education that I could not have otherwise acquired. It's like, wait, what? Yeah, you could have. It sounds like you could have any other way you could have acquired this. It's just, it's way too high level. It's not talking about facts. It's only conclusions. It's just absolutely telling instead of showing.
Yeah. The person who's reading this right now is saying, okay, first sentence, awesome. I'm curious, like, who this person is. It sounds like they've gotten shit done in their life, and they're reading through the first paragraph, and they're going, yeah, okay. And so they're actually giving you the benefit of the doubt, I think, solely because of your first sentence. I think your first sentence pushed them through this first paragraph, and they were going, yeah, okay. What else? What happened? Tell me about you.
Yeah, it's like the first sentence, she, like, showed the gun.
Yep.
But if you're going to show the gun, well, then now the reader wants the gun to go off.
Yep.
Let's hear about the negotiation. That's awesome. Negotiating is a thing that lawyers do.
Yeah.
Let's hear about you kicking ass in this negotiation. And instead, it's like this, my college roommate and I was always on a thing, and chefs bolstering a region, and I'm getting a diverse you're telling me that you're getting a diverse education from your circuitous path. Like, God, get to the facts. Where are the facts about you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Next paragraph.
That was the first paragraph, and I think we could cut it down to like one sentence. Like, if you just only would have written the first sentence and then had a paragraph break, I think you'd be better off than with all this other stuff.
Yeah. You have the potential of losing people in this minefield here. I would suspect that a bunch of them would just kind of quickly go through it and be like, yeah. And they're like scanning your statement for like, okay, what else you got here?
Yeah. All right. First sentence of the second paragraph says, my time as an operations director at the magazine was an exercise in variety.
Okay, telling. God. Okay, more. Cut.
Well, look at the writing here. I mean, this is actually a specific actionable writing tip. If everyone out there wants to get a pencil and paper, you could write down this tip. You got to look for instances of the verb to be in your writing, and not eliminate all of them, but consider eliminating each one of them. Because here the verb of the sentence is was. That's a form of to be.
Yeah.
It's just sort of inherently passive and inherently telling.
Yep.
You're telling me that this was an exercise in variety. For one, an exercise in variety, I'm not even sure what that means. You're telling me this conclusion that it was an exercise in variety instead of just showing it to me. The subject of that sentence, Ben, is my time as an operations director at the magazine.
So it's not even
word
you.
Subject clause.
Yeah.
So instead of saying I did this, I did that, and showing me the exercise in variety, you're just telling me that it was an exercise in variety, which I don't even know what the fuck that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
So that's just like, that's the type of sentence right there that just, that's just not good. You can tell that she's like a strong writer, right? She's not making glaring mistakes. She's got a variety of short sentences and long sentences. She's got a diverse vocabulary. Like, there's a lot to say that's good here, but then there's just a lot to say that's also bad.
Well, there's generally two components to writing, right? There's content and style. And she seems very good at style, generally. It's too bad she made that one grammar mistake. It's too bad that she's overusing, and this is probably a symptom of being good at style, overusing colons and so on. But yeah, there are a lot of things that she does know. Like, she also started a sentence with and, which I have no problem with.
If you do it well. Now we're going to get everybody writing in sentences that start with and.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it's like when we talked about the great use of a semicolon by one listener one time.
Don't do it if it doesn't come naturally.
If you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, just that sentence. It's really grating. The really long subject clause, and then the verb was. It's just like wah wah. I is your friend. I and an active verb. That's your friend. Foodies around the world subscribe to our magazine, and I was determined to uphold its attractive qualities in a new printer. I mean, we get it. You're looking for a good printer. That's not like that lawyerly, right? Like I didn't want a shitty printer for our food magazine. I wanted a good printer for our food. It's like, yeah, I wrote a request for proposal, and printers across the country submitted bids, many the size of a phone book. Okay, now we're time traveling.
We're going back to when you sent the request for proposal out.
Yeah, but you didn't put I had written a request for proposal. You just put I wrote a request for proposal. So like the verbs you're using indicate that this is all in the same timeline.
Yeah.
But it's also clear that you wrote the RFP before you went out to visit a potential printer.
Yep.
And so then the reader has to put that together for you. And it's just like, why are we I don't know. Why are we people? I mean, this is another general thing, but like if you could just keep your personal statement chronological, I think it's much easier to read that way.
Yeah.
And when it's easier to read, then you become invisible. Then I think you're a good writer.
Yeah.
But when it's not chronological, then I have to sort it out. And then I think you're a bad writer. Okay. So you're getting these phone book size bids. All right. I created spreadsheets to calculate cost varieties and compare key factors, and reviewed the haul of data I assembled with our CEO. Lots of problems there.
Yeah. Now, okay, so for the last two sentences, you did start saying, I did X, I wrote, I created. So I like that the content here is starting to come back more in line with showing us what you're doing, but we're just not all the way there yet. An initial reaction to this, it's a lot of ands here. You created spreadsheets to calculate cost varieties and compare key factors. Okay. And reviewed I don't know why you're saying the haul of data. Like you're trying to like, oh, so much. But the problem with saying something is so much actually kind of backfires, and it just seems like you're trying too hard. I assembled with our CEO. You know, I feel like they need to tell us when they've done something with somebody else, like fellow attorneys, or not really fellow attorneys, but attorneys at their office or the CEO or their supervisor or something like that. But if you did the work, you don't need to point out that you did it with someone. That just makes me immediately think, okay, well, how much of this did you actually do?
Well, it's furthermore. Yes, Ben. Yes, and
yeah,
that's not even what she meant.
Yeah, it's the data she assembled.
Well, she's reviewing it with the CEO.
Yeah,
she's basically presenting it to the CEO.
Yeah, so this with
she assembled the data.
Yeah,
but she's got the misplaced. I reviewed the haul of data I assembled with our CEO. It's like, well, wait a minute. Are you reviewing it with the CEO, or did you assemble it with the CEO?
Exactly. And I accidentally just...
Yeah. You did exactly the thing that you'll do if you write a sentence that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
I mean, now I'm thinking about it, it's obvious that the reviewing is with the CEO, but in general, when you have a modifying phrase, the phrase modifies what you just said. And so literally, I just kind of read it literally. But anyways.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that you have to clean up so that people don't make that mistake. Because when, the other thing that would have happened, and here's how I read it, was I read that and then I went, oh, wait, what? But no, you didn't assemble. And so I reconstructed it for you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm reconstructing it for you, then every time I do that, I'm noticing like, oh, that could have been written better.
Yep.
And then we go into just the real telling. My tendency to thrive when jumping into something new had kicked in.
Anyone could say that with no facts. They could just say,
I have a tendency to thrive when jumping into something new. And then she's using that as the subject. So the subject of this sentence is, my tendency to thrive when jumping into something new.
Yep. And then you have a to be verb.
The verb is had.
Yep.
Had what? Oh, it had kicked in. Cut.
Oh, wait, maybe that's not a to be verb. Actually, I don't know. Kicked in? Maybe that is that describing what? It doesn't matter. It's bad.
No, it's had. It's past tense to be.
Yeah.
Had, or had, whatever. It's just bad. That sentence needs to go.
Yeah.
I developed traits that would serve me well in a legal career, :
Oh, no.
exhibiting grit and keen analytical skills to determine cost savings and successfully negotiating crucial price points.
Okay, let's stop right here. So here you're just telling us this, right? So this is bad. You don't want to do this. You want to cut. You need to show. But here I think you have done something good in the sense that you've identified what you want to show to the reader. Now, you don't go out and say that. Instead, you say, okay, these are the characteristics that I want them to take away. What actions did I take that exhibit or personify these skills and show them happening? And then they can conclude, oh, you must have grit. Oh, you must be able to analyze cost savings, and you must be able to identify key negotiating points. But you don't say that. You figure out what you want them to conclude, and then you go find the facts that support those conclusions.
Yeah, I mean, even better, you think about the facts, and you let those facts dictate what conclusions you're going to reach.
Sure. I mean, it's a lot easier actually just to write facts. And if they're good facts, they will lead the reader to draw a lot of conclusions.
That's what I think people should be doing, right? So here's a little side anecdote from one of our personal statement service clients that we've got going right now. He noted in his shared doc yesterday, he's like, well, I could tell this story or I could tell that story, but those stories won't show leadership. And my immediate response was, well, then don't use those stories to try to show leadership.
Yeah.
Those are good stories. That's shit you did. And you can use them to show lots of other stuff besides leadership. Why are you trying to force the square peg into the round hole?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I agree, Ben, that if Anonymous has the goods to, demonstrate to the reader grit and analytical skills, then that's great. But let's just focus on the facts that show those things. And again, it's just the whole process needs to be led by the facts, not by the conclusions.
Well, it's crazy because good facts, when you tease out things that you did that are impressive on some level, whether they show leadership or something else, or grit or determination or hardworking or commitment, the thing about good facts is that they illustrate so many things. It's like we read that one sentence about her touching down in Philadelphia to negotiate this contract. It's like, okay.
Says so much.
Yeah, there's so many things that we can assume about you. It's like they say, a picture is 1,000 words. You paint a picture with facts. You say, look, see me doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And we go, oh,
you know what else I really like about that?
Yeah.
Is that it invited the reader to leap to all sorts of conclusions about her.
That may not be true even.
You focus on the facts that are true and don't bother with all of these overreaching conclusions. If you reach to the conclusions, then I'm going to resist that. Mm-hmm. But if you just only present facts then I very likely might be like, oh shit. Look, they're flying her first class across the country to the, and it's like, well, it didn't actually say first class.
Yeah.
But I'm free to imagine that she's on a fucking private jet to go negotiate this contract.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying you should be like looking to trick the reader or whatever. What I'm saying is if you just focus on facts that are in your favor, then the reader very likely might leap to conclusions that are even better than the conclusions that you would be willing to put on the page.
Yes.
This is all now, again, Ben, it's just like everything way out of order chronologically. She just said that she successfully negotiated crucial price points.
Yeah.
But then the next sentence says, and now I was throwing on a neon hard hat to tour the stainless steel insides of a printing plant in the heart of Pennsylvania farmland. Again, with all those modifiers.
Yeah.
Unnecessary detail about stainless steel insides and exactly where the printing plant. I don't give a shit that it's in the heart of Pennsylvania farmland. What's that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
It could be in Florida. It would make no difference.
Ironically, she's telling us that she put on a hat and she's touring. And for some reason, that visualization does seem to move the ball forward for me, at least.
Sure.
In the sense that I'm like, oh, I'm seeing you do stuff. You're not just sitting here at a desk. You're going and inspecting things. Like, you're taking responsibility for this project.
Right.
But
yeah,
it's
the fact that
oversold.
they've flown you there to negotiate, to view the thing and negotiate the thing is like, yeah, that's great. You're doing those things.
Yeah.
But it's also, now it's out of order, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're claiming, also, never, ever, ever with, I developed traits that would serve me well in a legal career. Do not say that.
No.
You're telling the law school their own business. Emphasize the facts, but just keep them as the facts about you and let the reader reach their own conclusion. It's just, applicants don't know what lawyers do. So you don't need to bother with that editorialization.
Yeah.
All right, but it's out of order now because I thought you already negotiated, but now you're just touring the thing again. So now I'm confused. Okay, here's the third paragraph. After a few meetings, we settled on final terms and signed a contract, reducing our annual printing costs by tens of thousands while maintaining our high-quality features. I continued to delve into new domains, wearing many hats other than a hard hat. I helped produce festivals throughout the Southeast. I planned photo shoots of James Beard Award winners. I oversaw each issue's layout. And I managed our subscriber base and newsstand distribution.
Okay.
Did I lose you, Ben? Oh, no.
No,
there.
no,
You're
I'm
good.
still there. I'm just...
You're overwhelmed.
Well, starting with the hard hat reference, like, it's just trying too hard to, like, be artsy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, wearing many hats other than a hard hat. Wink, wink.
You could have just said wearing many hats and just had it be like a kind of a subtle callback sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Where the reader would have just kind of made the joke for themselves. But instead, you're now just like really heavy handed with many hats other than a hard hat. And it's like har, har, har.
Har, har.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not the worst part of this sentence. The worst part of the sentence is that it's 43 words. It has a colon. It has 3 semicolons. And it has semicolon and.
So technically, you can use semicolons as commas if you have commas within each idea. So I don't know that.
But she doesn't.
She doesn't. So it doesn't seem necessary. I would.
Yeah, if you turn all those into just commas, then it's technically correct.
Yeah.
But she's using semicolons. I mean, each one of them is a complete sentence. Why doesn't she just use fucking periods?
I don't know. It would be a lot nicer.
I mean, really, folks, the period is your friend. I can't tell you. I really cannot stress this enough. You need more period. Less of all the other punctuation, and you need more periods. Lots and lots of periods.
Yeah. There should be a certain number, and we should figure that out, actually.
The minimum number. Well, yeah, it's another way of getting to maximum
Shorter
words
sentences.
per sentence is to say minimum number of sentences per piece, or minimum number of periods. By the way, you need a period if you're going to have a sentence. So let's go ahead and get to that period. Every time you get to a period, it's like, well, that was a successful sentence.
Yeah.
That sentence wasn't broken. But the longer you go on without a period, you just it's sort of like an exponential, isn't it? It's like an exponential increase in the risk of that's going to be a broken sentence.
Yeah.
So this is broken for, I don't know, 9 different ways potentially.
Well, I also don't, people do this. It's like, okay, when you say I helped produce festivals throughout the Southeast, that's something you did. I like the fact that you're telling me something you did. I planned photo shoots of James Beard Award winners. Okay, I like that you're telling me what you did. But it's like brushing over a bunch of things that they did. And so then I don't get a good vision of what you're doing with any of those. Like, you planned photo shoots. I'm not really visualizing what you're doing. I don't know what that means. So it's like too high level of facts. So at least
it's the kind of thing where we would very likely be like, oh wow, like why not give 2 or 3 sentences about this?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity. Like, that's a really cool thing you did. Why don't you tell the reader more about that instead of, my tendency to thrive had kicked in, or I exhibit grit, or all the other telling. I mean, everything in that first paragraph with the college roommate and the fast path to law school and all that shit, like all that stuff can be cut out. And you could just tell me more, like a couple sentences about what it means to plan a photo shoot for a James Beard Award winner.
Yeah.
Or what it means to oversee an issue's layout, or what it means to produce a festival. You could have expanded on all those accomplishments.
Yeah.
Instead of wasting time with all of the conclusions and other stuff. She's going to get herself in trouble here, Ben. This is, I also began helping to copy edit.
Oh no. Yeah. This is actually one thing you want to avoid talking about.
Yeah, you do. You really do. I also began helping to copy edit, a job usually done exclusively by our CEO and editors. Soon after I had started at the publisher, our editor-in-chief began calling me, quote, Eagle Eyes, and asked if I would start proofing each issue cover to cover.
Oh, yeah.
Her request, and my apparent new moniker, was in response to red Sharpie edits I made on glossy proofing sheets right before we went to print. Yeah, Ben, what's the problem with her talking about her copy editing skills?
Well, the problem here is now you're raising the ante. You're like, look, I can catch everything. I'm Eagle Eyes. And so we're like, well, here's 5 things that you haven't caught so far. I think it's a great experience. It's something you got to get good at as an attorney. You're going to be editing stuff over and over again, not only of your own work, but of other people's work. But it's actually something I would leave out of your personal statement. The only person who could do this is someone who knows that they know their shit. But even then, they're going to be nervous, because if they say, look, I'm Eagle Eyes, and they do something right. I've done this before. I'm like, I know this is like, most writers do it this way. This is the correct way if you know what you're doing. But you also know that some people think that another way is the correct way. And so you have this risk of being judged as wrong, even if you're right, so to speak. And so you just don't want to bring attention to that, because now you're just
and then there are the instances where you are objectively wrong.
There are instances. Well, yeah. That's the problem, is most people think they know and they actually don't. So then,
I'm like, well, but I'm sure she knows. But when she's going on and on about her red Sharpie, I'm like, oh, interesting. Because I've got fucking red Sharpie written on my computer screen up here from when I read your second sentence of your personal statement, from when you misused the word who in reference to a plant.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I like your idea of like raising the ante, where you start talking about your copy editing skills or you start talking about your writing skills. And the skeptical reader is going to be like, well, you should have caught that though. And you should have caught this other thing. Yeah. And we can cut all that stuff, huh?
Yeah.
She's got so much other better stuff to write about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if this was like super intense, and I'm sure they actually did call you Eagle Eyes, and I'm sure you actually did do a great job of copy editing at the magazine, but I'd rather hear about you producing festivals and planning photo shoots. And
well, here's one other thing to keep in mind. When you're copy editing, you can catch, quote, 10 mistakes. And the person who's writing the piece may say, yeah, I don't agree with 5 of these problems. But the fact that you identified 1 or 2 things that they're like, oh yeah, I should change that, will make them very happy. Like, they're like, yeah, let's fix what's wrong. And I'm just going to ignore what you said that's not wrong.
Well, it's also really interesting. You can catch lots of them without catching all of them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
and as long as you catch some, you're helping. You're helping them.
Sure. Like, Ben, you and I do a lot of collaborative editing with one another, right? We've got the shared Google Doc where we're editing somebody who is a client of ours in the personal statement service. And you've made a bunch of edits, and I go through and I look at the edits and I agree with 99% of them. But I'm also like, oh man, I can't believe Ben didn't catch this. I can't believe Ben didn't catch that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do the exact same thing with mine.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, well, there's also this, and there's also that, and there's also this other thing. So and I don't know. I guess maybe that's like another point in favor of she just needed somebody else's eyes on this.
Yeah.
Because one pair of eagle eyes is apparently not enough. I got to get overall, my writing advice for Anonymous is that I think you got to stop with the semicolons, and you also got to cool it with the M dashes. Probably no semicolons, no colons, and really sparse with the M dashes.
Yeah.
Because there's just like a lot. It's like, this is like coming at you.
Yeah.
Which is just too much, because it's like, it makes me think about the writing more than the substance. And you've got so much good substance to talk about. Okay. We still got a few paragraphs left. Although I enjoyed working in a variety of areas. Yeah, that's just kind of falls flat. You could just omit that whole phrase, right? It's like not going anywhere. Eventually, I hit my plateau in publishing, semicolon, I knew I needed something more.
I'd never say this. I don't know. It just seems like any field you can continue to progress in. You can go on and take different roles. There's forever learning in most fields.
Well, and it doesn't do what you think it does. People think they need, this is also an ultra common thing that people include in their statement. They love to say how they hit, well, I couldn't go any further there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason,
more badly
I hit the
on
wall.
you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, you're bored? Oh, well, then you're boring.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why didn't you find something interesting? Why didn't, like, oh, do you think that a legal career is going to be super exciting every day?
Yeah.
Like, 1, do your job and stop complaining about it. 2, make your job better. Now, I'm not saying that like really to Anonymous.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the impression that it gives. Or that's potentially when someone who doesn't know you is going to read that and go, oh, that's too bad you hit your plateau. Other people wouldn't have.
Yep.
Over the years, I'd often recalled my friend's insistence that I'd love law school.
Oh, no. Please don't bring your friend back.
Back with the college roommate. We don't care about your college roommate. I'm sorry. I never, ever want to hear about your college roommate in your personal statement.
Or your mom, or your dad, or your uncle.
Really? Yeah. No, I want to hear, especially you, because you're like an actual professional person.
Yeah.
You could just tell me about you kicking ass at work, and I would be like, oh my God, let's sign this person up right now for our law school.
Yep.
Like, really, the school should be thinking, like, if you write this the correct way, if you write this and just like emphasize how much of a baller you are, the school's going to be like, man, she's making a big mistake by leaving her professional career and going to law school. But
we'll take her.
Yeah, fuck yeah. She's going to be awesome. And instead, you're like making, again, it's back with this making me think about you as a college kid. And it's like so naive to be, my friend insisted I would like law school. That's a terrible reason to go to law school.
Terrible.
Semicolon, Ben. 2 sentences in a row now with semicolon. The more I explored it, the more I knew she was right.
I don't care.
Also, pure telling. What do you mean you explored it? How did you explore it? You haven't been to
think
law
about
school.
it at night?
Yeah. In your mind. I absorbed as much as I could about the whole process and dedicated myself to a rigorous timeline. Later, resigning from the magazine.
Okay. Telling.
It's just like, why do I care?
Yeah.
I stayed in touch with the editor-in-chief and continued to proof issues monthly.
Okay.
Oh, dear God. With bright eyes, I was moving full speed ahead. Semicolon. I began reading books for pre-law students and attorneys alike. Researched schools and ABA 509 disclosures, with disclosures capitalized for some reason, and met with legal experts, including judges, lawyers, and deans. Cut the whole paragraph. I don't want that paragraph at all. There's nothing in there I like. I don't care about you resigning. I don't care that you continued to proof issues monthly. You had an actual professional job. Tell me about all the achievements at that job. And then if you're going to move to another job, which it looks like she is, tell me about the other job. I don't need this whole paragraph of like treading water. All right. But nothing made me more sure that I was on the right path. And again, I don't want to know about your, like, certainty. What you think. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm the law school. It's my determination whether you're a good fit for my law school. Your mental state that this is the perfect thing for you it's a complete zero to me. I don't want to know about that.
Yeah.
Nothing made me more sure I was on the right path than when I began working for a lieutenant colonel judge advocate general at a busy general practice in Maine.
Wow. Why are we saying that it's busy? It's like trying too hard.
Why are we saying that it's a general practice? Why don't you just say you're working for a lieutenant colonel judge advocate general?
Yep.
Now, after over 1 year of being in court. After over 1 year of being in court.
So 13 months.
Well, also you could just say, for the last year, and then say what you did instead of making, I don't even know how to, well, I guess it is going to get to an I. This is all a prelude to the actual subject of the sentence. Okay, I got it. Now, after over 1 year of being in court, drafting legal documents, and working closely with attorneys, oh my God, have no doubt about my decision to apply to law school and become a lawyer.
I'm starting to think now that you have doubt.
Yeah, right. It's totally protesting too much. Absolutely.
I'm convincing myself through this statement that I should be subjecting myself to these 3 years of misery.
With you. And it's such a missed opportunity because she could have said, I draft legal documents.
Yes.
I go to court. I do this. I do that. Instead, she does it in this weird prelude to the actual sentence. And then the actual sentence is just another thing about her lack of doubt. And we know you're fucking applying to law school. I have no doubt about my decision to apply to law school.
Good.
Yeah. I'm reading your personal statement as part of your application to law school.
I hope you have no doubt, because when I accept you, I want you to turn around and accept. But now that you're telling me you have no doubt, I wonder if you do.
I know. I know. Okay. Wait, there was something else I wanted to shit on earlier. Where was that?
Was it the to be? Sorry, I can't talk. The to be verb of being in court.
That was awful. Don't get me wrong. The beginning of that sentence made me throw up in my mouth a little bit with after over 1 year of being in court. I don't know what's wrong with that. I just kill it with fire. Not even going to try to fix it. That's just going to be deleted. It was something earlier. Oh, yeah, it was way back in the previous paragraph. She did the contraction on I had. She made it I'd. She said, over the years, I'd often recalled my friends' insistence that I'd love law school.
Yeah.
And so there she's like, yeah, she wants to say I had often recalled. I'd often recall. Maybe it's correct. I don't know. It just bumped me for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. That was
contractions, by the way, aren't. Sometimes people go through their personal statement and they remove all contractions, and that's not good.
That sounds
either.
So stuffy and weird when you do that.
So they're good, but yeah, sometimes you have to just read them and say, okay, is it clear to say I did or I'd or whatever, right? And I'd is one that's a little ambiguous because the apostrophe D can actually refer to more than one word. Whereas
it could be I had,
can't,
or it could be I would, right?
Yeah, or I did, because you'd say I'd.
Oh yeah, you can do that. That's weird if you do, but
yeah. So there are some contractions that aren't as good as others. Can't. Ironically, by the way, side note here about writing, saying I cannot do something versus I can't do something. Sometimes people will write I cannot because they really want to emphasize that not. It turns out that when someone's reading that, they're more likely to misinterpret your sentences saying that you can than when you use the contraction can't. Because when people see the word can't, they almost never misinterpret that as can. Sure. But cannot, they'll just drop the word not, and then they'll read it as can. And the LSAT does that all the time. People miss nots because they don't do contractions.
She's meandering here. She's going back and forth between what she did and what she thinks.
Yep.
And I would vastly prefer that she eliminates everything about what she thinks and just says what she did, and then let the reader reach their own conclusions. Again, I can't say this enough, but you're applying to law school. We know you want to go to law school. Stop saying you want to go to law school. So now she's going to say more about what she did. I've had the opportunity to write appellate briefs, assist in trials, and attend oral arguments at the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. Legal writing has become a strong interest of mine, semicolon. I value developing its craft and recognize its importance in this field.
You value that?
Yeah, it's so telling, huh?
And it's also like, okay, great, you're talking about writing again. So now you're just raising the bar even more.
Just say you wrote briefs, say you assisted in trials, said you attended oral arguments. That's all great. Those are all points. Those are all, that would be like, scored a point there, scored a point there, scored a point there.
And then we would conclude from that you know what you're doing when you're applying to law school. Like, oh, she must know what she's getting into.
Full bullshit on the next sentence. Legal writing has become a strong interest of mine, semicolon. I value developing its craft and recognize its importance in the field. It's like you're telling the reader their own business.
Yeah.
just cut all that. Say what you did. My unconventional path leading me here has solidified my professional development, provided diverse experiences, and shaped my ideal of a career.
I don't care. Are you going to kick ass once you get here?
Yeah, and don't tell me you're going to kick ass once you get here. Show me all the asses you have kicked.
That's an image.
Line up all 10 asses, the 10 most prominent asses that you have kicked, and just show me them in chronological order. And that's it. I don't need anything else. I don't need a single conclusion. I don't need any introduction. I don't need any conclusion. I just need like a trail of dead bodies.
Whoa.
Seriously. I want a fucking killer. I don't want a nice lawyer, Ben. I want a fucking killer.
Yeah.
Show me all of the bodies that you have murdered. And I will be like, yep, that's the one. But instead, it's just all this telling of, like, really solidified your professional development? What does that mean?
I have no idea.
Provided diverse experiences, absolutely anyone can say. Shaped my ideal of a career is, again, you talking about your own mental state. Helping clients through legal processes impacting their lives constitutes this ideal, comma, as a member of a rewarding and respected profession. I just don't even know what to say. Recently, a justice granted a motion I drafted, awarding our client child support arrearages. Hey, that's a good fact. That's a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. More like that. Less about how helping clients through legal processes impacting their lives constitutes your ideal career, comma, as a member of a rewarding and respected profession.
That's just like brown nosing.
And the reader immediately goes, it's not actually that rewarding. It's not actually that respected.
I wish it were respected more.
I'm sitting here in the admissions office of this stupid fucking school because I went here and paid $150,000 for a JD and never practiced law. And now I'm evaluating your application and you're telling me how respected and rewarding the legal career is. I don't know. Okay, so she drafted this motion and it was granted. That's awesome. More like that, please. Creating such a direct benefit for someone who couldn't benefit otherwise inspires me to help others overcome similar unresolved issues. I have made it my goal to help deliver justice to those who can't help themselves and to practice law as an attorney.
I hope that's your goal. Why do people still use the word justice in their personal statement?
Well, yeah, it's funny because this is like a longtime listener, longtime correspondent of the show.
Yeah.
And she abused the shit out of the semicolons, which we've warned against a million times. And she also had to come back with justice, which we've said the word justice does not belong in your personal statement. And she's telling me that she wants to practice law as an attorney, which is just the most obvious thing you could possibly put. Literally every single person who's applying to law school wants to practice law as an attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope to God they want to practice law as an attorney. Otherwise, why are they applying to law school? You know, I don't even like the idea, like the fact that she's putting in there, I've made it my goal to help deliver justice to those who can't help themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like that hurts your application more than it helps it.
Sure. Why?
Because the whole game, we got to be fucking realistic, Ben. It's about money. This shit is about money. Law school and lawyers are about money. And I know you don't, that's, whatever. You have social justice aspirations. That's nice. But most people who go into law school with those aspirations are going to be disappointed, and they're going to end up doing something related to money. People with money can pay. Like, you're not going to law school because you hope to make $40,000 a year, are you? No, you're going to law school because you want to make six figures. And just...
I had made it my goal to help deliver justice to those who can't help themselves. Really, I see what you're saying. You're going to be delivering justice to those who can help themselves.
Well, who's going to fucking pay your salary?
Yeah.
Like, what job is it that you're going to get where you're actually going to help deliver justice to those who can't help themselves? I mean, now, like, let's just look at this motion that she just drafted. She's getting child support for a client. Well, that's part of, I assume, an expensive divorce. Mm-hmm. There's money there somewhere. Your client, even if they're not rich now, they were rich, or in the marriage they were rich. And you are getting the money somewhere. So I guess I get it that you're helping somebody who, without an attorney, they might not be able to access this money. I don't know. I don't know why it's so irritating.
Hey, this discussion reminds me of the 2000 movie. Came out in 2000 with Nicolas Cage, The Family Man. Did you ever see that?
No, but I just watched a horrible Nick Cage movie. The Family Man?
Yeah, so it's funny because it's like this, he's with this girl and he's a big executive at some company and she's in law school or something. And the whole movie is based on this premise of like, what if they had stayed together? And so it goes back in time and they stayed together, and instead of going into like big law, she ends up going into like this pro bono practice, right? She doesn't make any money, and she helps.
Pro bono practice.
Yeah.
A thing that doesn't exist, but okay. It's Hollywood. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Hollywood, right? And they're poor, but they're all happy, and she's like helping these clients in her city who, need legal services and blah, blah, blah. And he ends up not going on and becoming this like executive of some huge company, and he's just this like tire salesman. Anyways, the whole movie is like he's disoriented. He's like it's like he's transported into this alternate universe, and he's confused and he doesn't understand and he hates it because he's poor and he doesn't have this money. But then by the end he realizes that he likes it, and of course the little magician dude comes and he's like, okay, time to go. And he goes back to like his the real world where he's this high-powered executive. He's separated from this girl. She's like gone off to some big practice and she's heading it overseas. And anyways, it just made me think of that because that's the reality. And the fantasy is that you're happy in some small town making no money, but helping poor people, I guess. Which, that would be great if people could do that, but most people can't.
There are like government jobs, right? And there are NGOs and there are nonprofits. And so there are some jobs that truly do deliver justice to those who can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But those jobs are real hard to get. And either they pay nothing, or the ones that pay anything are really, really hard to get. And I just want... applicants need to realize that there are far more people who think that they're going to go become some pro bono lawyer than actually there are jobs to support you. And law schools don't want students who are going to not be able to build successful legal careers. So having read thousands of personal statements by now in my career, the ones that, if I were a law school, even if I did want do-gooders, I would still be wanting to admit people who sound like they're open to the possibility of an actual, like, lucrative legal career. So every time you say, my goal is to help deliver justice to those who can't help themselves, I just think that the schools have to be like, oh, yeah, you and 3,000 of these other applications that I have. Mm-hmm. And, oh, let me look at my unsatisfied graduates. My unsatisfied graduates are clearly going to be heavily weighted toward those people who thought that they were going to go to law school to deliver justice to those who can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Like, people who wash out of law because, oh, I thought I was going to be helping refugees. You know?
No, you're actually helping Google get talented workers into the United States.
Yes.
That's where the money is.
If you're going to practice immigration law, you're going to be practicing immigration law on behalf of big corporations. Like 9 times out of 10, or at least 9 times out of like actual jobs that pay. Mm-hmm. They're just the one thing about that poor refugee dishwasher who you want to help, and I'm with you. I want to help that person too. But that person can't pay. And who is going to pay? Because presumably you're not going to law school because you want to work for free for your whole life. You know, like, there has to be a job somewhere for you to be able to help these people who can't help themselves. Somebody has to be willing to pay your salary. So who's it going to be? So I don't know. I'm not saying don't go to law school for social justice purposes, but I am saying you might want to leave that out of your application.
Yeah.
It's just, there's too many applications that look like that. And the law schools, they can't be that stupid. They can't be so stupid that they're like, oh yeah, this year, all of our people who came to law school to become social justice warriors are going to be able to find successful careers in social justice warrioring.
Yeah.
You know, they're not that dumb. They know that, like, best case, you're going to change your mind and decide to go work at a firm. Because that's where their successful alumni come from. I'm painting with a super broad brush. I want to acknowledge again that yes, there are these jobs. But, you know, like, if you think you're going to go to work for the NAACP, one of you is. One of the 3,000 of you listening to this is going to get that job.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk about length really quick. This statement is 2 pages long. It's double spaced. It looks like the font size is either 11 or 12, which is right.
Okay.
So the formatting is all great. And someone who, a lot of students, I think, would look at this, or applicants would look at this and say, hey, okay, 2 pages, double spaced. That's what I'm looking for. But sometimes we work with clients, right? And their statement is only a page and a paragraph, or, you know, and they're like, I feel like it's too short. But you're looking at the wrong metric, because if you have a personal statement that's a page and a little bit more, but every sentence is moving the ball forward, giving us facts that tell us something about you. Like that first sentence in this personal statement, right? Just told us so much. Well, when you're done reading that page or so of personal statement, you are like, wow, I know this person and they're a badass. This personal statement has roughly 35 to 40 sentences. I don't know the exact number, but I would say a good 3/4 of them, sadly, are not moving the ball forward. And so the reality is this statement is actually shorter, really, than the one that's a page and a quarter or whatever. This is like a paragraph.
In the value it's delivering. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's long on words and short on ideas. It's such a missed opportunity though, because boy,
yeah,
it sounds like she's got so much awesome kick-ass career shit. And if we had been working with her on this, we would have been like, tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. What did this look like? Oh, what exactly did you do when you were working closely with attorneys? What did that mean? Tell me a little bit more about the detail of the day-to-day. And we could have just jammed these 2 pages with facts. And those facts would have said so much more than all of these conclusions that she put in here.
And we might have decided to end after a page and a half. That's okay. And that's actually good. Like, people are relieved that they don't have to read so much, and they'll be rewarded because they're going to read it and get substance and be like, okay, I know who you are. Thank you.
That's like
And
the
it's
mic
over.
drop. Yeah, if you go in there and you just completely kick ass for 45 minutes and drop the mic, that's a great show. Like you killed it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Or if you go in there and you make a devastating closing argument and you decide to only use half of your time, well, fantastic. Like you made your case.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a less than 1 page personal statement just because it would look so weird.
Yeah.
But anything on to the second page, yeah. I mean, if it delivers the goods, why not?
Yep. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the
she
word
could
on,
use
like-
the full 2 pages because she has like a career to write about.
Yeah.
So many facts she could have talked about. And just, you could really, if you just use all the facts, you just don't even need to make any conclusion at all. I know we've said that a million times, but the best conclusions are the ones that aren't even stated. The reader just gets there on their own because of all of your amazing facts.
Cool.
Boy, she asked for it. She said, rip it up. So hopefully she doesn't hate us too much. That said, she applied with this statement. She applied to shit tons of schools and she's got some offers.
Yeah.
We're not going to go into the details, but I do want to just make a couple quick comments on the spreadsheets that
Sure.
she gave us. What do you want to say?
Well, first, she's done her homework. So when she's negotiating with these schools, she has a lot of opportunities to compare their offers to other offers and also just understand what they're really offering her, because these spreadsheets are huge. She's got tons of schools in them and she's got tons of data about the schools that I think a lot of applicants aren't thinking about. They're just like, hey, did I get in or not? How much money did I get? Oh, I got $15,000. Yay. Thank you. That's more than $10,000 at this other school. I'm going to go. And, you look at what she's doing here. She's probably doing a little overkill here, but I'd much rather have this be my attorney
Well,
than
that's
someone who's under prepared, right?
Make no mistake. Lawyers are all about overkill.
Yeah.
It's like that. Remember a couple episodes ago, we read that personal statement where someone was like, I was sure we had submitted enough.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's like,
the
well,
opposite.
that's not a lawyer.
Yeah.
A lawyer is never sure that you've submitted enough. A lawyer is like, would you like it again in triplicate? Oh, also, by the way, I need to add this and this and this and this and this and this other thing. Mm-hmm. So the fact that she's got way too much data on here, like the year that they were accredited by the ABA.
Oh, whoa. I didn't see that. Yeah. That's,
I mean, it's just like,
more
I don't
than
give a
enough.
shit what year
yeah.
Georgia was accredited. But, oh, by the way, it was 1930.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unnecessary. But the stuff on here that she's got that's really useful, so wherever she grabbed all this data from, she's got the acceptance percentage, she's got the class sizes, she's got the 75th, 50th, and 25th for LSAT and GPA. She put in all the bogus data here about like number of faculty and all that stuff. I don't think that's really relevant at all. The money stuff is important. So she's got the tuition, she's got the non-resident tuition, she's got the cost of living, and then she's calculating the first year tuition plus living cost, and then it looks like multiplying that by 3 to get the 3-year tuition and living cost.
Well, so
By the way, those are all, look at what those numbers are in that far right column.
yeah, they're edging close to 300,000.
Oh, holy shit. And then on the next page, oh, I see what she's done. I think she's extrapolating their tuition increases.
Yes, she is. So she just sent us an email actually and explained that. So
Oh.
some schools have told her, hey, there's an 8% increase in tuition from year to year. Some schools haven't made it public or haven't told her, but she's figured that out by looking at their 509 reports and saying,
From previous
okay,
years.
Yeah, what was tuition last year? What's it now? Okay, that was a 10% increase. I'm going to assume that that's your standard.
Sure.
Which is great because how many people are saying, "Oh, tuition's $50,000. Okay, so 150. Got it. Thanks." No,
Not if they keep jacking it up by 10% every year.
Yep. So these are all wonderful things to ask, because when they're telling you, hey, we're going to give you a scholarship for $40,000 on a $50,000 tuition, you're saying, okay, so it's going to cost me 10. Well, yeah, but next year it's going to cost you 15. I mean, assuming you keep it. These are the kinds of things you need to know so that when you go into a negotiation, you know whether the offer is good or not. And you know whether to jump and take it or to wait and ask for more.
Yeah, so she's calculating extrapolated third year cost, extrapolated 3-year total cost minus scholarships and stipends and whatever else they're giving her. She's also got columns on here for the deposit deadlines, for the conditions for renewing the scholarship. She's got columns on here for, I think she must have the like percentage of scholarships that get taken away.
Yeah. How
does she have that? Reduced or eliminated? Actually, I'm not seeing it. She should have it on there. I mean, one thing you can do with the percentage of scholarships reduced or eliminated is you can sort of like calculate then your expected value of like, well, if I'm a typical student at this school, then here's my chances. Or I'm a typical scholarship student at this school, here's my chances of keeping it. And you can sort of like weight the offer, based on, well, there's some non-zero chance that I'm going to lose the scholarship, and here's how much it would cost me if I did lose the scholarship, and not drop out. Of course, you should definitely drop out if you lose your scholarship, but
well, the swing in total costs is astounding here, because some schools are over 300,000, some are as low as 56. Now, of course, this is based on the offers that they've given her, and she's calculated that all up together, and she says, okay, look, after 3 years of living expenses, tuition minus scholarships, and it would be nice to incorporate this expected value that you're talking about. She doesn't look like she's done that, but regardless, she's still light years ahead of most applicants. She's saying, I'm going to walk away with about $56,000 in expenses versus some other school over 300,000. I mean, the difference, oh my gosh, that is incredible.
She's got 34 schools on the list. I mean, that's overkill, but good. Overkill is awesome.
Yeah.
You win. One thing about using too many bombs is that you definitely win. Yeah. So she's like, that's what she's doing. She's just, she's murdering here, which is fantastic. Crazy, the wild swings, so she's got on the low end, $56,000 it's going to cost her.
Yeah.
That's at a school that's obviously giving her a full ride. Then on the high end, Harvard. Nope, not Harvard. Crazy. What school is on the number one?
Wait, what's the high end? I see Harvard.
Yep, there's one that's higher.
I'm missing it.
Notre Dame.
Wow.
Holy shit. 1L resident tuition plus all fees, $78,000 at Notre Dame. Can that possibly be right? Oh my God. That goes back to like what Ben Barton was saying about how there's the irony that the highest and lowest ranked schools end up giving you the biggest indebtedness.
Yeah.
So that's like Harvard on the very high end and then Notre Dame on far lower end.
It makes me feel like these cars I was looking at. Just so like the price is not connected with the quality in any way. So you just have to dig in and figure out what's the best deal.
Also, there's so much randomness in the admissions process and so much randomness in the scholarships that they're going to try to give you. So the best thing you can do to combat that is to just apply to this big, broad, diverse basket of schools and then just see what comes in. She's also got a column here on how much money they're going to give her, whether and how much money they're going to give her to visit.
Yeah.
So it's like some schools are buying her plane tickets. Some schools are paying for her hotels. It's worth pointing out that if you're paying for law school, that's one of the things you're paying for is for them to like fly better candidates than you across the country and put them up in a hotel to try to get them to come to the school to kick your ass in the academic competition.
Yeah.
They're going to give those people scholarships too, and potentially living stipends. And then you're going to have to compete with them for grades. So don't pay for law school. She asked specifically, Ben, about how to push some of these deadlines back. It looks like all these deadlines are happening in April.
Yeah.
The ones that I can see are happening in April. What would you say to one of these schools if they had admitted you, given you a, an okay offer, but not like knocked your socks off? What would you say if you didn't want to pay their April 1st or April 15th seat deposit?
So the goal in my mind is always to be super respectful, grateful, but then ask for what you want. So,
but not like obsequious, right? Like you can be business polite and grateful without, gushing. Oh my God. You don't want to totally show your cards.
Oh, I agree. But I think there's value in being respectful because it actually shows a position of strength, right? Like if you really can walk away and there are better offers for you, then you don't want to be a jerk. You just say, hey, I really appreciate your offer. Actually, this is me more just talking. In an email, I'd probably say, thank you for your offer. I appreciate the time and effort. I'm considering 2 other options right now. Could you possibly delay my deposit until this time? I don't see why not. Especially if you are in a position of strength, you just stick to the facts. You just say, hey, I'm considering this offer from Georgetown, or I'm doing this. I am still interested in your school. Fact, true. But I would like some more time to decide. If they say no to you, they're risking you walking away.
Yeah.
And so you can't look at this as just the school holds all the cards. This is not like Vegas where, the house always wins. This is, they're trying to get you just as much as you're trying to go to somewhere you want to go. And so know the lay of the land, like what she's doing here. Get familiar with all the different ways an agreement can be arranged. I mean, it's not just about the amount of money they offer to you. It's also about the conditions of the scholarship. It's about, the living expenses, the whole package. So you look at all of that, and when someone doesn't want to give on something, you can ask in another thing, right? So
if you're doing this correctly, they need you way more than you need them.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to flip that exactly on its head. You don't even need to go to law school. But if you do need to go to law school, you certainly don't need to go to their dumb law school. That's why, Anonymous has applied to 34 law schools. So she is definitely going to have multiple competing offers. And that's step 1 of this whole negotiation, is to just put yourself in the position where you can walk away
from anyone.
Think about negotiating, on the car dealer, at the car dealer, Ben. Did you actually buy something, or are you still shopping? Or
no? But it shows the power of being willing to walk away, because when we said a really low number, they said no, but they still came back with something that was surprisingly low.
Yeah, and haggling. I hate haggling. Like I buy cars at CarMax so that I don't have to deal with any of that type of bullshit.
Yeah,
but it's not my personality. I just don't like it. But like if you've ever been to, I went to Thailand 20 years ago, and at Thailand in Thailand they have all these night markets, and at the night markets they have all these like trinkets and things that you might want to buy, and it's just part of the culture is that you have to haggle, right? So they always start off with some price that's like way too high, and if you're a really stupid tourist, you might just go ahead and pay it, which is fine. You're donating money to the local economy, but they expect you to ask for a different price. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that if you're going to get a really good deal, you have to like kind of start walking away. It's like part of how it works. You just go, oh no, I'm sorry. And you say it politely, right? You're not like a dick to them, but you politely say, oh, I'm sorry. It's really nice, but I just, it's just the price is too high, and you start walking away, and then magically the price drops, significantly to try to get you to buy it. Yeah. That's what would happen. I almost feel like trying to get them to push the deposit deadlines just as a negotiating tactic, like just see what they'll do if you try to push that deadline.
Yeah.
You're signaling to them that you are willing to walk away, that this is not your only offer. You're not desperate.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised to see what'll happen once you start sort of edging away from their little booth.
Yeah. For all you know, they might say, well, look, the deadlines are firm, but what if we're able to increase your scholarship? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting twist.
Or not.
Yeah.
She asks specifically about like how much information she should share.
Yeah.
I don't think you necessarily need to share any information. I mean, if you have an offer that you really want to show them, fine. Like you have some really great offer and you're like, nah, I'm about to take this offer.
Yeah.
Let's see if they can beat
You're
it.
planning to walk away. You're going to go get that offer. You don't see how they could come back with anything better.
But you give them the opportunity to knock your socks off.
Sure, yeah.
Then that's fine. But if this is still like in the early stages of the negotiation, and if you don't have an offer that's like dramatically better than what they've offered you, I don't know that I would be sharing mediocre other offers.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is that Honda dealer going to really care if you're like, well, I've got this car that I could buy at this mediocre price? You know, they're just not going to be impressed.
Yeah. I agree.
Let's see. Did we answer all of these questions for Anonymous?
The language, exactly, right? I would just say, thank you for the offer. I'm still interested. Can you do X? Can you match this offer?
You can be yourself, but like be your business self. Mm-hmm. Be your professional, polite, but, you know, no nonsense, firm business self. Pretend like you're a lawyer negotiating a deal, or, you know, you're negotiating the terms of a contract here. I mean, that's literally what you're doing, is negotiating a contract. So you can push back on all the different areas that you want them to change, and then just see what see what they're willing to give on and what they're not willing to give on. I would just say keep in touch and definitely ask for what you want. I mean, if they're in the business of lowballing people, I mean, they're going to try to get, they want you to pay the most they can get you to pay. That's obvious, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, they're trying to get you to pay the most and you want to pay the least, and everybody knows that that's the game. And so I don't think you need to be shy about saying, hey, can you reconsider your scholarship offer? I have other competitive offers in hand. I don't know. Anything else?
No.
This whole thing about like, should she include cost of living 1 year or all the years? I don't know. I don't think she needs to get all specific. Does she?
No, I would only raise that up. If they come back and they say, hey, look, we can't do this for this or something like that, you could say, I appreciate your effort. I'm concerned because the estimated cost of living here is X number of dollars more than this other option that I'm considering. I'm not sure how I can, manage that. And then you're putting the ball back in their court. You're saying, look, I'm aware of what's going on here. I'm an informed consumer, and maybe they'll throw you a bone. They'll say, okay, yeah, well, here's $5,000 in stipend. Does that clear it up? It's not quite the $10,000 difference you're talking about, but we just gave you $5,000 for stipend.
Yeah, make yourself look like Ben Olson, a savvy consumer. He's probably got the like consumer reports printouts, and he's clearly going to 10 different car dealers today and is not going to buy a car right this second. Mm-hmm. That's what you want to look like. You don't want to look like the person who, walked there and is about to go on a road trip to the Grand Canyon tonight and like needs an SUV today. You got all your kids with you. I'm hungry, Daddy. Let's go. We're late. Don't look like that. Just make sure you look savvy and you've got other offers and you're in no hurry. I mean, again, the same advice that we've been giving the last couple episodes, but when you're listening to this, it's early March and you got months still before you really need to make a decision. They have the arbitrary April 1st or April 15th deadline for your first deposit, but they're still going to be admitting people 2 months from now. Right? They've got people on wait lists. You can put them on a fucking wait list.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you have to. Now, again, they could stick and say, nope, we have to have your deposit. But if they do, even if they do that, you're not going to really know until you say, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry, but I have these other offers. I guess I'm just going to have to walk away.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised. You potentially would be surprised what happens on April 2nd or April 16th after that deadline has already passed. I don't think that they're going to just immediately be letting you go that easily.
Yeah.
They might be talking, oh, we have a second deposit deadline on such and such. It's like, yeah, I bet you do. One final note, there's just a funny kind of a note. Anonymous was one of the people who got an email saying that she was registered for the March 2020 LSAT.
Yeah.
And then she got a follow-up email saying, actually, you're not registered for, because she wasn't. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it was funny because it like sort of turned it around and blamed it on her almost. I think I can read the text of this. This is kind of funny. The subject of the email was erroneous email regarding the March 2020 LSAT. And then the email from LSAC says, "Dear candidate, we are aware that we erroneously contacted you regarding the March 2020 LSAT. However, you were registered for the March 2019 LSAT. We sincerely apologize for any confusion the message may have caused. If you are not registered for the March 2020 LSAT, please disregard the email. There will be no further action required on your part." I like how they kind of said how they're saying it's our fault, but they're also sort of backpedaling like, well, but you were registered for the March 2019 LSAT. So
that's why we got confused.
It's not it's not totally our fault because you have been registered for a March LSAT in the past. I don't know. I thought that was amusing.
I agree. Hey, good stuff, huh?
Yeah. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's do it. So join the Thinking LSAT podcast group on Facebook. You can follow us at Thinking LSAT on Instagram and Twitter. Visit strategyprep.com for my classes in the DC area, foxlsat.com for Nathan's classes in LA and San Francisco. Our joint project is LSAT Demon, which is at lsatdemon.com. All you need in your phone to study for the LSAT is there. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, and our very own thinkinglsat.com. Leave us a review if you're so inclined. That was episode 234 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.